Some men, faint-hearted, ever seek our program to retouch, and will insist, whene'er they speak, that we demand too much. 'Tis passing strange, yet I declare such statements give me mirth. For our demands most moderate are. We only want the earth. Be moderate, the trimmers cry, who dread the tyrant's thunder. You ask too much, and people fly from you aghast in wonder. 'Tis passing strange, for I declare such statements give me mirth. For our demands most moderate are. We only want the earth.
That's very good.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah. What is that?
That is I guess a poem or song. It's in a little collection called Songs of Freedom, so I guess maybe it's a song by James Connolly.
Okay.
Noted Irish Republican socialist.
Yeah. Wow. What a banger.
I love that these moderates and trimmers are still around telling us this stuff today.
They're so scolding everywhere. It's just horrible.
Don't, you're going to make people afraid with demands for healthcare like all the other countries have.
Yeah, it's nuts. Ugh. Or like, they're full of excuses for this fucking old-ass president. Like, oh, he just got there. I'm like, motherfucker, he was vice president for 8 years. He should know what he's doing by now.
Yeah, it's just that he's lost some of his ability to know what he's doing in the narrow sense of what literally is he doing. But, I mean, I think Connolly would also find our demands sadly trimmed as well.
Oh, probably. Like, really? You're still doing that?
Yeah. We should be instead, as he says here, demanding the earth.
Yeah. I want it all. All right. What are we doing today? Sounds like we got a theme.
Yeah, we have a little bit of a theme here. We're going to be talking about Ireland.
Okay. Well, as I mentioned last week, I know nothing. Like, literally nothing.
Yeah.
So.
I knew surprisingly little when I went into this. I knew kind of the overall outlines, and I had taken a course on this in college, Irish history, like from 1800 or whatever.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
I dug out my old notes after I had tried to do a bunch of like Wikipedia reading. I dug out my old notes and was like, wow, this is way easier with these notes to kind of condense it.
Thanks, Past Grady.
Yes. So it's a huge story that we're not going to cover all of it.
Yeah, that doesn't sound possible.
Not possible, and shorter than like a 5 hour. I don't know. It would take a long time. So what we're going to do is narrow our scope. Okay, so we're going to be talking about overall our subject here is the revolution in Ireland, the struggle for liberation there, going back from when they're initially like conquered and oppressed by the English, and only covering that up through the Easter Rising.
Okay, I've heard of that, sort of.
Yeah, we'll cover that in its entirety, all the way up until the point when Ireland declares its independence. They had done it before, but like this is the time when it actually like when they end up succeeding.
When it's stuck.
But we'll cover the War of Independence, next time later.
Cool. So yeah, I think we're planning on kind of sprinkling these throughout, so it won't be like next week's episode, but we'll come back to it kind of like we do that a lot with like Russia because that's obviously a huge history. So yeah.
So this is definitely what I want to revisit because I have been researching like all of it as well. So it's
good shit.
It will all fit together. Yeah, it's great. So we'll be focusing in on the kind of the background and then mostly the Easter Rising, and especially focus in on one of the figures of the Easter Rising named James Connolly, who we just read his cool poem.
Yeah.
We'll take a look at him because he is an important socialist thinker.
So I want to just give you even more background on how little I fucking know.
Okay. All right. I'm eager to hear it.
There was this tweet going around. I don't know if you saw it, but it was like circle Wales on this map, and no one from the States could do it, including myself. And
that's bad.
Okay, here's the thing.
Was it a weird map?
It was a map of countries, but like it had UK all together. So like I was looking for like a border, so I could be like, that one's Wales, and there wasn't a border. So I was just like, I don't know, one of these, like in the sea. I don't know.
Nice.
So, and this is bad. I used to know I guess, the difference between like UK and England and stuff. I think I do now. I'm not 100% sure. But I kind of knew it because I was working on it for a client and they were having like a UK themed event. But now I don't remember anything.
Yeah, it's okay. So the UK is like the government, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. That's like all of it minus the Republic of Ireland. Like everything on the British Isles, the two islands, minus the southern part of Ireland. Right?
Okay.
Everything else is UK. Right, and it includes England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. Those kingdoms as part of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
That's why they're united. Okay.
Yeah. Then the island is like both islands are called the British Isles. The island itself is called Britain, the Big Island. Mm-hmm. And then
England's a part of that Big Island.
Yes, England is the southern half of the Big Island, yeah.
So you could be British and be from Wales, but you couldn't be English and be from Wales.
Well, I mean, you could have moved to Wales, but yes.
Well, yeah. Well, you know what I mean.
Yes.
I'm rectangle squaring this.
Yeah, you're right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
All right, so let's get into this. I wanted to first kind of up top say like, okay, what do we have to gain from talking about this? What are we trying to learn sort of thing? What is our learning target?
Yeah, objectives. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ireland has a revolutionary tradition. Mm-hmm. Which has been an anti-imperialist force through modern times. It's been an inspiration to, and it's been in solidarity with anti-imperialist struggles worldwide.
That sounds great.
It's kind of like the first resistor against particularly British imperialist.
Because they were kind of the OG imperialists, as far as I know, right? That was kind of their shit.
Yeah, I mean, you also have,
there were other ones, I'm sure, but they were bad.
Yeah, the British certainly, they had the famous, sun never sets on the British Empire thing. Like, they were serious about it. So, yeah, as leftists, I think that it's, part of our mission to support struggles for national liberation, struggles against imperialism. Like, we fucking hate imperialism.
Dude, it sucks.
So, and that's a big part of the story of Ireland.
Take me away.
All right. We're going to, like I said, cover from the beginning of its oppression to the War of Independence in 1919.
Okay.
Part of that's going to be real brief. Part of it's going to be more detail. We're going to be focusing more in detail on like the Easter Rising and stuff, like we said. Not a full story here. More of just kind of the overview.
Overview.
Yeah.
All right. I just did a Google. Ireland is the one that looks like a bird. Okay. Confirmed. Great.
It's the little island by Britain.
I just wanted to make sure that I had my geography right.
Yes.
It looks like a little dove.
If you want like I don't know how often each of these terms will come in, but some of these terms will use like geographic terms and where everything is. And I found this helpful when I looked back through my Ireland notes. Ulster is in the north. Connacht is in the west. Leinster is in the east, and Munster is in the south.
Ooh, Munster, like the cheese?
Like the cheese, yeah.
Okay. I mean, I don't know any of those places, so it's cool.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely at least be referring to Ulster, so it's helpful to know that those guys are in the north.
Before times we were planning a trip to Ireland, and what I remember about it most was one time we were at this bar and we were talking about it, and this girl came over and she had this really gorgeous Irish accent. And she was just like, where are you planning on going? And we're telling her, she's like, fuck Dublin. You don't want to go there. You go to Galway. And I was like, okay. So this girl really hated Dublin. And I thought it was funny.
Well, that would be a real cool trip to go to Ireland. In the world to come, I definitely do want to visit that at some point.
For sure.
All right, let's jump into this. So I've mentioned this term in passing. But I want to make sure that we have a definition for it so that going forward is not too confusing.
Okay.
So some vocab. The term Irish Republican Socialism.
Okay.
Because to American listeners...
not that one.
That doesn't make sense. Yeah. So Republican here in this sense means it's talking about Irish Republicanism. It's the movement to unify an independent Irish nation. In the form of a republic, right? Popularly elected representatives. They want the entire island to be united and free from British rule.
That was my next question. I was going to ask if they wanted Northern Ireland back.
Initially, the island had not been partitioned yet. So when they're talking about an Irish Republic, they mean the whole island. And then once it's partitioned, you have some people who are like, this is cool, we like this state, let's protect it, versus some people who are like, we want to reunify the whole thing.
Okay.
So Republican socialism blends that part of we want to be independent from the British with wanting all of Ireland to be also like a part of a social revolution. So a socialist workers state, workers republic.
Sounds great.
It's kind of cool. Yeah. So that's what we're talking about when we use these terms. I don't want them to be too confusing.
Okay.
All right. Now it's time to dive into the history.
I'm ready.
And we're going to dive far back because Ireland, like we said, is basically Britain's first imperial possession. Before England at the time appears to conquer them, they had this kind of clan system going on. It was called the Sept.
Yeah.
And so everything, they had kind of almost a system of kind of common ownership. You did have kings and a high king of all the kings sometimes.
Okay.
But it was like a clan-based system, so family structure sort of thing. And there wasn't this concept of private ownership of the land in terms of oh, here's your landlord that you have to pay, or, here, go work on this stuff for a wage from this person. It was more of we work this land together. We have this for our clan. I mean, it's not a perfect society. I mean, they have wars and stuff and general, they do suffer from the things that people suffer from under less developed societies, I guess. But it's not capitalist in any way.
Interesting. Okay. Sounds cool.
Well, it's cool. It's medieval, though.
I wouldn't want to go there. Yeah, but
it sounds like it has its own difficulties, but that's kind of where they're coming from when you face the Anglo-Norman invasion of 1169.
Jesus, we went way back.
Yeah, and we're not going to spend too much time, but the English show up. They are the Normans, because it's after William the Conqueror, so after the Norman invasion.
So they're not Anglo-Saxons anymore?
Yeah, they're Anglo-Normans now, yeah.
Okay.
The ruling classes, anyway. Not too important. They come in. It's super important in the big picture, but it's not the details are.
Not a big deal.
Yeah. They come in. They, take over. It's a war of conquest.
Yeah.
And this establishes England's claim over Ireland. So afterward, they're going to be look, we conquered you back in the day. You're ours.
Is there a reason they conquered them? They just wanted the land?
Yeah.
I didn't know if there's a specific resource they were after.
Not really. Just the land and domination.
They just wanted it.
They're establishing feudalism, and under feudalism, the land is your riches. So.
That's true. Yeah.
Wealth, the primitive accumulation of capital. Then the ruling elites there kind of just assimilate into Irish life, basically.
Okay.
They become sort of like the Irish were before they conquered, and eventually everything kind of falls back out of English control, and you have the Tudors come in and reconquer stuff, and this is in 1529, so centuries later.
Okay.
They come in, they're what happened? This is bullshit. Let's conquer it again. And they do, and then this starts a system called the Plantations of Ireland.
Well, that's, got some bad connotation there.
We pretty much never like plantations.
Yeah, I don't think there's a reason to ever be positive towards that word.
Yeah. And it wasn't good here. This was where they were colonizing. They were settling Ireland, parts of it, with English people.
Okay.
So they were taking lands from the Irish Catholic population that lived there, taking it and giving it to English immigrants.
That sucks.
Yeah.
That's a bad one. Okay.
It was, also a brutal kind of warfare. There were multiple wars involved, complicated stuff, but that's what they did.
That's the result. Okay.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah, not good. Then a century later, 1649, you have the invasion of Cromwell.
Okay. Is this that Oliver Cromwell guy?
Yeah, Oliver Cromwell.
Is he the spooky one? There's a spooky guy.
I mean, his armies. He's fighting in the English Civil Wars. So
I'm thinking of Aleister Crowley. Crowley. I don't know. He's an occultist.
Yeah, no, that's not him at all.
Not him. Okay. He wasn't a secret occultist.
Way different. No.
All right, that's fine.
No, he was very like pious. I don't know. But he also, his armies like ended up killing a ton of people. So not that pious. Anyway, Cromwell's invasion of Ireland is brutal, terrible. Tons of people are killed. What's the death toll? Casualties and losses. Unknown.
Okay. We'll just assume it's bad.
15 to 20,000 battlefield casualties, over 200 to 600,000 civilian casualties.
Okay, very bad.
Yeah, around 50,000 deported as indentured laborers.
Oh, wow.
So, if you are talking to an Irish person and they ever, spit when you mention Cromwell's name, since that comes up in conversation all the time.
I'm always going up to people.
Yeah,
just asking, what do you think about this guy? Yeah, that's fair. Okay.
After that, the Catholic population in Ireland, which had done this revolt that led to Cromwell's invasion,
okay,
they end up being a subjugated population.
That sucks.
Yeah, they pass all these laws to restrict their rights and make things shitty for them. And so, Ireland is throughout this time and ever since that time used and abused by the British Empire.
It's funny that they conquered it and then like centuries later, like, I was just here like 300 years ago. Like, let me clean this up. What? I turned my back for 200 years and now this happened.
Yeah. And they end up, it's basically because they don't care that much about it. Like it's just supposed to be like extra income for them.
Yeah. If you don't care about it, then maybe you don't need it.
Yes.
Take care of your shit. Put up your toys before you play with the next toy.
Exactly. So Ireland suffers under the British basically in those.
Yeah, sounds bad.
All that time. Yeah. And they're not doing it passively. Remember, one of the things we loved when we were reading Galliano is the story of people resisting against all this bullshit. And people in Ireland were doing the same thing.
Cool.
Aside from a group called the Unionists who were in Northern Ireland and Ulster, who were descendant from the Plantations. So people who had moved in and settled to Ireland and they were mostly Protestant, and they were,
they were cool with this.
Yeah, because they weren't really on the oppression end of it.
Yeah, they're like, it's time for me, man.
It was kind of like their government was coming in and protecting them from everyone else. So they kind of liked it. They wanted to stay in the UK. That was fine with them. Most other people, though, in Ireland were rebelling against this periodically. Never really successfully, though.
Yeah.
There were physical attempts to do this. There's like a rebellion in 1798 called the Rebellion of 1798.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there's the Young Irelanders Revolt in 1848. That's a
cool one. That sounds like a cool music festival.
Oh, yeah, man. There's a lot of others.
Okay.
They get crushed in various ways.
Okay. That sucks.
There's social movements, which kind of they have some limited success. There's like the effort for land reform. Basically, it's like a campaign against landlords.
Great. Love to see it.
One of these efforts actually leads to the creation of the word boycott.
Really? How did that happen?
There was this guy, and
I'm not going to pay your rent until you get me a cot, and I'm a boy. That was it, right?
No. There was this guy named Captain Boycott, Charles Cunningham Boycott.
Okay.
And he was an asshole.
Oh, no. Okay.
He was like a landlord, He was such an asshole to people that like the town that he lived in, people, not only the people who owed him money, but everyone else in there was like, this guy's such a dick. Like, let's refuse to do any business with him. Refuse to socially to acknowledge him at all. Like, this dude is persona non grata here.
That's fantastic. They just shunned this dude.
They shunned him into leaving. He left. That's
great. We should do that with all of our landlords.
Yeah. And this is where the term boycott comes from, is because of this guy.
Interesting. Well, I love a word history. That's great.
Yeah. So that's part of the land reform efforts. And like I said, some success. They do pass some kind of moderate land reform bills or whatever in Parliament. There's also a social movement for the separation of church and state.
All right. Can you give me a range of what time zone we're looking at here?
Yeah. So the land reform effort ends up the land war, which is part of this camp, and it's a bunch of different campaigns. But yeah, we're talking around 1879.
Okay, we jumped a bit. All right.
Yeah. The reform bills end up being passed in like 1903.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
So this is a slow process.
Yeah.
Then the separation for church and state, like this was against the Church of Ireland, which is just the Church of England, but in Ireland.
Okay, the administration arm of that.
Yes, and it was like the official church, and you like had to pay a tax that paid for it.
That sucks.
But like almost nobody there was actually a Protestant member of that church, so that's why everybody hated it, and so they eventually got rid of that part. It was still around, but you didn't have to pay for it in 1869. So we're just talking about the 19th century basically here.
All right.
You also had political resistance, and this is going to become like the main form of resistance against British rule, because it was centered on something called the Irish Home Rule movement.
All right.
These guys wanted self-government for Ireland within the United Kingdom. So like, let us, pass laws for ourselves, but you're still going to be kind of in charge.
All right, like a federalist kind of thing.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
Let us be our own state. Before Cromwell, Ireland had its own parliament. It was a puppet of the British parliament, because like you had to be Protestant to be in it. You had to pay enough money, like so.
That's very shitty. That's not good. Okay.
Yeah. And then Cromwell came in and like, you guys can't even handle that, and he took it away and just said, "We're ruling you directly."
Do you sure?
He sucked.
They still have like a House of Lords, right? Like that's insane to me, guys. We got to stop that.
Well, the House of Lords has like no power now compared to then.
Really?
But yeah,
okay.
I don't know if they can act. They might can do some things now, but House of Lords, I bet they can't do fucking anything.
I want to find out. I feel like they just yell at each other in fancy clothes.
That's the House of Commons, too.
Oh, okay.
It's unable to prevent bills from passing into law, except in certain limited circumstances. I assume, if someone's trying to pass a socialist worker state.
Or if they pass away, like, let's kill all the House of Lords. Like, no, not that one.
It can delay bills, and it can force the Commons to reconsider their decisions.
Go back to your room and think about this.
Think about what you've done. I think the House of Lords should be abolished, but it's nowhere near it doesn't have the power for evil that it once did.
Yeah. Well, that's good at least.
Because back in the day, it was really quite an obstacle. The Home Rule movement, they wanted Ireland to have its own self-government, its own parliament, basically do its own thing, but also the UK could kind of still be in charge. Yeah.
Okay.
It wanted to be kind of like, Scotland or Wales. They have their own kind of thing going, but I don't know. They wanted more of their own rule.
Okay.
The main party that was advocating this was called the Irish Parliamentary Party.
Okay.
They wanted a parliament in Ireland.
Pretty straightforward.
They're very moderate. These were the moderate guys that Connolly was talking about. They tried and they failed multiple times to get a home rule bill passed in British Parliament. The first attempt failed straight up in the House of Commons, failed.
No.
Where it's, yep.
Okay.
The second one failed in the House of Lords. It got through the House of Commons, but then the House of Lords was like, are you kidding me? No. This will, the third try, however, they end up succeeding.
Okay.
But this causes a lot of issues.
Why is that?
Well, so in 1912 is when they get the third home rule bill introduced.
Okay.
And this really pisses off the Unionists in Ulster in Northern Ireland.
Oh, in the north, yeah. Those Protestant guys.
They're super afraid of being governed by a Catholic majority government.
Oh, because they're like, shit, they could turn the tables and then we'll be persecuted.
Yeah. And, they invoke a lot of bigoted kind of language about this. Their phrase for this whole thing was home rule is Rome rule.
Wow, cool.
Yeah. It's catchy, but it's pretty much a dick
Pretty
state.
anti-Catholic. That's bad. Okay.
Yeah. So in 1913, they create the Ulster Volunteer Force.
Okay. This is like a military group?
Yeah, this is a militia.
Shit.
And the militia vowed that they would fight by whatever means necessary against home rule being implemented in Ulster.
Oh, gosh. So now we're splitting. Okay.
Yeah. Now, the bill hasn't even been passed yet. This is...
So they're just threatening.
It's just been introduced.
Shit.
They still have to, vote on it and stuff. But yeah. In the meantime, the British Parliament took away the House of Lords' power to straight up veto bills.
Okay.
So they could delay them.
Oh, yeah. Like we talked about.
But they couldn't veto them anymore, like just reject them. So they could delay it for 2 years, but they couldn't actually stop it. So people figured at this point, home rule bill is probably going to happen at some point. Yeah. So that's why Ulster's so freaked out.
Yeah.
In response to all this, the Irish nationalists create their own volunteer militia called the Irish Volunteers.
Okay.
They say, you got a militia, we can get one too.
Damn. Getting ready to pop off.
Yeah. It's designed to protect against the UVF, basically, the Ulster Volunteer Force.
Okay.
It's a big tent organization, members from all these different groups, and this all gets kind of complicated, but most importantly, it includes members of a political party called Sinn Féin.
All right. Does it have a translation or something?
Sure. Its translation means ourselves.
Okay.
In English, ourselves. Sinn Féin, it's a nationalist political party. It was, at the time, kind of moderate. Like, they still wanted this kind of monarchy thing, but they wanted it to be sovereign, its own state sort of thing.
Okay. So, they could have their own king?
No, like a dual monarch. Like, they were hard to describe, but they wanted it to be more of a national. They were more nationalist, I guess, in that sense. They didn't want to be like, yes, please, England, can we please do this? They wanted to be kind of on par with them, but paired up too.
Okay, so we could still be pals, but let me do my own thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
At the time, they're going to later on become a lot better than that and become Republican and everything. Yeah. But that's where they were then.
Okay.
Everybody grows, I guess.
Got to start somewhere.
Yeah. And you also had the Irish Republican Brotherhood.
Okay. That's a cool name.
These guys were a secret organization.
They sound very secret. Once again, picturing some robes here.
Welcome to the Irish Republican Brotherhood. Yeah. I think you're just thinking of the Dark Brotherhood.
Yeah, I think so.
Which they were not. I don't think you had to murder anyone to be in that.
Damn, okay.
Those are there's other groups too, but those are the ones that are going to come into play. Their members were members of the Irish Volunteers, and they got heavily involved. Things are getting crazy, basically. Like you said, it looks like things are going to pop off, right? The militias, they are forming, they're drilling, they're arming themselves, they're getting ready for war if it breaks out. And both sides are basically saying, whatever means necessary, man, we're going to protect our shit.
Shit, okay.
Add to the mix, you've got British Army officers threatening to resign en masse if they are ordered to arrest Unionist militias. So the UVF, the Northern Ireland, if they're ordered to take action against them, they threaten that they're going to resign.
Oh, fuck that. Go ahead. I'd love it.
Yeah.
I could use a few less imperialist soldiers.
But of course, the British government's freaked about that.
Yeah.
Add to the mix of something a little bit more worldwide significance. World War I breaks out.
Yeah, I was going to say, not a great time to be planning this.
Yeah, well, World War I breaks out 1914, and the Irish Volunteers split. Boom. Most of them, a pretty big majority of them, go to enlist in volunteer units in the British Army. They sign up for the war.
Wow.
They go sign up for this bullshit imperialist war.
Yeah, it's a bad one.
Meanwhile, Parliament finally gets around to passing the Home Rule Bill.
Is this during World War I?
This is during World War I, and since that's the case, they pass a bill alongside it saying, well, this is during World War I, so we're going to delay implementation of this for a year.
Okay.
That should give the war time to be over. We all know it's not going to take too long.
We all know it was a 1-year war, right? That was a quickie.
It also had a little clause in there that was like, if somehow the war's still going on, we can keep delaying it for 6-month intervals.
Wow, that sucks.
So they do. They keep doing that. They keep delaying it. And the IRB, the Republican Brotherhood, they're pissed. And they start planning a rebellion.
Okay.
They're like, this is not going to work, man. These guys are going to keep delaying this.
Oh, for sure.
But they're real slow about planning the rebellion.
They're busy. There's a war.
Yeah, and they gotta consolidate, get all their.
They gotta make new robes.
Yeah, and on top of that, we'll add another militia.
New militia entering the ring.
Yeah, the Irish Citizens Army.
Okay, gosh, I'm gonna get so confused with all these dudes.
It's okay. They'll join up soon. It's
okay. Fine. I don't have to worry about it then.
Yeah, the Irish Citizens Army is pretty cool, though. They're founded by Jim Larkin, Jack White, not that Jack White.
Not that Jack White, okay.
And James Connolly.
Or is he a time traveler?
Could
we
be.
may never know.
Haven't looked into it. What does Jack White in this case look like? Well, he doesn't really look like him.
Okay. No. He's hot in his own way.
He's got kind of a cool, like, noir detective thing going on.
Yeah, yeah.
Like a knockoff Indiana Jones.
A little bit, yeah. Like, he's going to come into a room and tell you what's what.
I like how when people on Wikipedia have their name parentheses something, it's like, not that so-and-so. You know?
This one. Yeah, that's true.
And so, yeah, you've got kind of quite the powder keg going on here. I want to focus in on the last guy here, James Connolly, a little bit.
Okay.
Because he will play a big role in the rising itself, but also just as part of the socialist movement here, cool. Which is also going on at the same time.
Okay.
All right. So James Connolly, he was born in 1868, ends up dying in the rising in 1916. Spoiler.
Alert.
Yeah.
Okay, bummer.
Well, we can cut it if we don't want to spoil it for people. James Connolly, he's worthy of a whole episode in and of himself.
Yeah.
But for now at least, he'll have to suffice with kind of a summary here.
Okay.
He grew up poor in Scotland to Irish immigrant parents.
Okay.
And he works from an early age. He's poor like all his life. He's working class, like poor working class, we're talking, you know.
Okay.
He joins the British Army in his youth.
Interesting.
And hates it. He ends up going to Ireland in that capacity.
Yeah.
And participating in like the land war and sees like how shitty everything is.
Yeah. Okay.
And hates it. They say, we're going to ship you off to India. That's your next deployment. He deserts.
Cool.
And like lifelong hatred of the British Army because of that.
My kind of guy. All right.
He becomes a Marxist.
Also my kind of guy.
He starts reading, just Marxist literature. Says this is dope. Ends up moving to Ireland, where in 1896 he founds the Irish Socialist Republican Party. Okay. It starts out as kind of like a club, a book club or just a social club or whatever. Real small organization.
That's how most of these leftist orgs start. It's just like nerds, I feel like.
Yeah, we gotta start some nerd clubs, I'm thinking.
We'll just start throwing in some socialism into our D&D group and yeah.
We'll become, yeah.
It'll happen.
The Irish Socialist Republican Party, it's real small, okay, but it's important just because it's the first Socialist Republican Party in Ireland.
All right. Does it have to be secretive? Do they have robes?
They're not secretive.
Okay.
They're out in the open. The initial club might have been, I don't know, secretive, but no, because he answered an ad he found out that they had a job open. That's why he went. So yeah, it's not secretive at all.
Okay.
And his socialist views I kind of wanted to get into, his perspective.
Yeah, I'm curious about that because so far it's been very nationalist or moderate, just give us a little bit of power. But I haven't heard a lot about materially besides the land reform stuff. So lay it on me.
All right. So Connolly it's important to note that he's coming from a very, proletarian, a very workers' common background. So he's not really going to ground things and it's not going to get too intellectual or abstract.
That's fine by me.
It's really concrete. He says, okay, old Ireland was kind of proto-socialist.
Yeah.
There was this system of kind of social rights, of democratic principles. He said property was intended to serve people and not the other way around. Mm-hmm. He saw the home rule movement as just kind of bourgeois bullshit. This is just a parliament that's going to be, in the capitalist control. and not in our control.
Yeah, move the boot to somebody else's foot. It's going back right on the neck.
Yeah. Here's how he puts that, actually. He says, after Ireland is free, says the patriot who won't touch socialism, we'll protect all the classes, and if you won't pay your rent, you'll be evicted, same as now. But the evicting party, under the command of the sheriff, will wear green uniforms and the harp without the crown, and the warrant turning you out on the roadside will be stamped with the arms of the Irish Republic.
Oh, good. Thanks.
So he says one master, it's just a different name.
Yeah, I mean, at least if I get thrown in jail or something, it'll be by a black vice president who's a woman, so woo!
There you go, yeah. So he said it's useless to fight for republicanism without that social reform too.
Yeah.
You have to have both. Independence and worker control, republicanism and socialism.
All right. What were, I guess, conditions like in Ireland then? I imagine bad.
Very bad.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Not great, but okay.
Dublin was described as Europe's biggest slum, basically.
Oof, okay.
Massive overcrowding in terms of, especially in Dublin, just the housing situation, in terms of working, people were working crazy hours in horrible working conditions. He's part of leading the beginnings of the workers' movement of unionizing and things. Him and another guy named Jim Larkin. Okay. And they're really doing this because conditions are so bad. I mean, it's kind of like how we looked at in Open Veins, when we look at the American worker situation in the Industrial Revolution, it's bad. And people band together to fix it. But it's that much worse when you're talking about the colonized countries. Yeah,
I was curious to see if it was significantly worse than like England and stuff.
Yeah. I would say it's a parallel in that way. It's worse than the workers' condition there, yeah.
Okay.
He was also a feminist.
Nice.
He was total feminist. He said, if the worker is a slave, then a woman is the slave of that slave, referring to.
Yeah.
Yeah, the double oppression there.
Yeah.
And he kind of synthesized this view of feminism with his republicanism, with his socialism. He saw it as all bound up together, the struggle against oppression.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
It was all kind of the oppression of capitalism, but it wasn't enough just to be like, let's fight capitalism, it'll fix everything, right? He kind of said that, a social revolution would also be required. I mean, the socialist revolution would fix the economic problems, but that's it. Like, you have to also change society's, views, I guess, have that cultural change.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of that discourse lately of people kind of accusing leftists of only viewing things materially. And I don't know, I push back against that a little bit because I'm like, you have to realize materialism and racism are closely linked. And like, I'm going to keep talking about that.
Yeah.
So I think it's okay to focus on material stuff as long as you like interweave it with like, yeah, like these other social problems still exist and they support each other.
I don't know. In the past, I think I've been somewhat guilty of that because I do tend to focus on, hey, we've got to fight capitalism first and foremost, and then everything else gets pushed to the side, partially probably because of who I am. I don't suffer from directly these oppressions. But it is important, I think, that to acknowledge that they actually are, they both need to be fought for.
Yeah,
at the same time.
I think it just goes back to that superstructure thing. Like they affect each other, they are upheld by each other, so we have to do both.
Yeah, it's not enough to fight for just either one.
Yeah.
So shoe on the other foot, it's not enough just to fight for representation or just to fight for, liberation of different groups. Like, you also have to fight what is the main oppressor of all of them.
Okay.
So yeah, Connolly was on board with that.
Cool.
Way back when.
Love it.
He was, like we said, always a common person, always putting things into ways people could understand. He also would infuse how he would reach out to people with kind of like Catholic social teaching. That's what smart. He was brought up in and how people he interacted with.
Yeah, he knew his audience.
Yeah. So he kind of wraps it up in this kind of early Christian, like, sense of morality, justice, that sort of thing. In 1903, he went to America. He hung out with our friend Danny DeLeon over there.
Oh, hey, I love him. He always does both things.
Yeah. He hung out with Big Bill Haywood.
Who's that? Is that like a cowboy?
It does sound like it, right? But he was a union organizer.
Okay.
Of part of the IWW.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, he was hanging out with
name.
them. Yeah. Yeah, he's just Bill Haywood, but his nickname is Big Bill. So.
I love it.
He was a huge dude. Like, he was just huge. And when he comes back, he does this big American tour. It's for a while. It's like 7 years.
Wow. Okay.
That him and his family, they're out there. He comes back. He has some heavy syndicalist influences, the labor union guys. Yeah. He wants to basically create the IWW's, one big union. He wants to unionize the whole place, have a big general strike, lock out the employers, revolution.
That sounds good.
Yeah, I like how he puts it. He says, in response to the accusation, would you confiscate the property of the capitalist class and rob men of that which they have perhaps worked a whole life to accumulate?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's his response too. Yes, sir. And certainly not also, because he says, we would certainly confiscate the property of the capitalist class, but we don't propose to rob anyone. On the contrary, we propose to establish honesty once and forever as the basis of our social relations. The socialist movement is indeed worthy to be titled the great anti-theft movement of the 21st century.
Oh, I
20th
love it.
century, he says. Sorry.
Yeah, it makes me think of that. Have you seen that chart that's like, it was talking about all the types of theft in, I think it was LA County. And like all of it was wage theft basically, and robbery was like 5% or something, like this little tiny box in the corner.
Yeah, robbery, shoplifting, any of that is minuscule.
Yeah.
Compared to the real thieves, which are the wage thieves.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. I like that way of putting it is that, hey, no, actually, we're trying to like unrob people.
Yeah, you're the fucking thieves. Also, they worked hard all their life, like freaking. I'm making the jerk off motion.
And I picture him doing that when he's giving the speech too, or he's just like, "Oh, my whole life to accumulate."
No.
I'm sure he was sassy.
I'm sure
he seems to be less sassy in like the piss off your friend sense than like Lenin was.
Okay, he didn't start shit.
No, he's a friend, dude. He's like when everybody loved him, pretty much.
Oh,
that's
great.
what it seems like.
All right.
Danny DeLeon didn't, but he didn't like anyone.
Okay.
After their initial friendship, they end up like parting ways because DeLeon's like, you like religion too much. You should be a strict atheist.
Okay.
Connolly's like, I'm from Ireland.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
So anyway, he goes back to Ireland in 1910, and he works with Jim Larkin, who's this socialist trade union guy who was in charge of working with the Irish Transportation and General Workers Union, which is just this big, labor union.
Mm-hmm.
And with Larkin, he founds the Labour Party of Ireland in 1912 as like a political arm to the labor union Congress there called the Irish Trade Unions Congress. It's just a group of labor unions.
What was this guy's name? What's his first name?
Who?
Connolly.
James Connolly.
James. I looked up John. I was trying to see if he was hot. Oh, he was not hot. That's okay. Sorry.
That's all right.
He's cute, but I don't think he's hot.
No, he's like middle-aged fella.
He seems like a nice boy. I would trust him. Okay.
So in 1913, he founds the Irish Citizens Army.
Okay.
Which we mentioned before, this new militia group, right? Its purpose was to protect workers from police violence.
Okay.
Because police violence had been a big part of shutting down the Dublin lockout.
Okay. When was that?
So this was in 1913 too.
Okay.
And it was a massive, but the best way to put it is a reverse strike, where the employers in Dublin locked out some 20,000 workers from their factories.
Oh.
Because the workers were demanding better working conditions and the right to unionize.
Shit.
And so the employers were like, you want that? Well, good luck.
God, what shitheads. Okay.
Yeah. When the workers were like out protesting and stuff, the police like started cracking heads and doing cavalry charges on people and shit. And
the police were being police, you mean?
Yeah. And Connolly and Larkin were like, fuck that. And so they founded the Irish Citizens Army to fight back.
Okay.
And sure enough, the cops kind of laid off a little bit after they saw that people were like, going to not take it.
Do they have like guns and shit?
Yeah, they did. They had like rifles.
Okay. He armed the people.
Yeah. That, adds to the situation before the maybe Civil War about to happen, right?
Okay.
And then in 1914, when World War I breaks out, Connolly, looking at it, says, stupid. He says, I know of no foreign enemy of this country except the British government. And he's just like, this is dumb. Why would we do this?
Waste of time.
Yeah.
So he was probably really pissed when everyone left to go fight.
Yes. Yeah. He thought that was stupid. And because he has this very internationalist view. Mm-hmm. In one of the pamphlets that he put out, it's a great name. It's called Socialism Made Easy.
It's like a cookbook.
Yeah. Beginner socialism. And he's talking about like how workers of the world should unite, like how we're all in this together. Here's a passage I kind of wanted to read about that. It says, the shares of Russian railways, African mines, Nicaraguan canals, Chilean gasworks, Norwegian timbers, Mexican waterworks, Canadian fur trappings, Australian Kanaka slave trade, Indian tea plantations, Japanese linen factories, Chinese cotton mills, European national and municipal debts, and the United States bonanza farms are all bought and sold by investors, many of whom never saw any one of the countries in which their money is invested, but who have, by virtue of so investing, a legal right to a share of the plunder extracted under the capitalist system from the wage workers whose bone and sinew earn the dividends upon the bonds they have purchased.
Hot damn. That is some straight fire. I love this guy.
Yeah. He goes on kind of after that a little bit to say, the wage worker is oppressed under this system, in the interest of these capitalist investors who may be living thousands of miles away and whose very names are unknown to him. He's therefore interested in every revolt of labor all over the world, for the very individuals against whom that revolt may be directed may, by the wondrous mechanisms of the capitalist system, through shares, bonds, national, municipal debts, whatever, be the very parasites who are sucking his blood also.
Wait, can you break that one down for me?
Sure, yeah. So basically the worker, right, because of this sort of international investment thing, could be being oppressed by any capitalist anywhere around the world.
Yeah,
so
and
when
they would
he
have no
tunes
idea.
in, so when we tune in and we see, hey, these workers are being oppressed in this country, we're not like, well, that sucks. That's in their country though. Because the people who are oppressing him over there, those could actually be the guys who own the stock in the place that is oppressing you. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder if Galliano read this guy. Like, this is straight up his alley.
Yeah, it reminded me of it for sure. So yeah, that's part of his internationalist streak.
Very cool.
He also had a cool little anti-monarchy bit that I wanted to read because it's funny.
Okay, great. Tell me his cool king joke.
He's basically making fun of rich people and parliament and government and stuff when they're like, oh, we can't do these good things for you because that would be bad for you actually, because it'd make you irresponsible. The charity thing.
Yeah.
And he's saying, they do all these things. They lower our wages. They increase our rents. They do all this to prevent improvidence, to make sure that we don't do shit that we shouldn't do, right? Mm-hmm. And he's talking about old age pensions. He says, old age pensions might do us harm. That's what they say to us. Ah, yes. Yet come to think of it, I know quite a number of people who draw old age pensions, and it doesn't do them a bit of harm. Strange, isn't it? Then all the royal families have pensions, and they don't seem to do them any harm. Royal babies, in fact, begin to draw pensions and milk from a bottle at the same time.
Oh, my God.
Afterwards, they drop the milk, but they never drop the pension.
I mean, it's so true. Like, who was I listening to? It was the West Wing thing. They were talking about the fucking stimulus check. And it's like they don't want to do something so they don't have to. I don't think it's because they actually have a moral standing or whatever. Mm-mm. They just don't want to do things. They're just like, fuck, if we do this, they'll realize we can do things for them.
They'll realize we can do things for them. They'll realize that they don't have to work as hard.
They don't have to suffer.
Give people, yeah.
Yeah. It's just like they're trying to hold back the dam of realizations. It's just like, no, we can't, because then it'll snowball, and it's just insane. It's like, what if you just did your fucking job?
Yeah, for real. So that's kind of a little bit about Connolly before he gets involved in this. That's who he was. That's what he was doing. All right, but he gets involved in this. Remember, where we're at is that home rule's about to happen.
Yes.
And both sides are fucking going crazy.
Yeah, not a good time.
They're mad. Ulster's mad because they're afraid that it's going to be bad for them. The Irish nationalists are mad because the Ulster guys are mad. Let's hop back into the story here. So Connolly, with his Irish Citizens Army, starts saying, I'm going to do a rebellion.
Cool.
We're going to do it.
Okay. All right. He puts it on his calendar.
He starts basically threatening this rebellion, planning this rebellion, because like nothing's happening, dude. Because the home rule bill people are dragging their feet.
Yeah.
And this is crazy. This reminds me of something that's happening now, actually. You remember back right after George Floyd was murdered, the Minneapolis City Council said, we're going to disband the police.
Yep.
Back this past December, they voted instead to trim the police budget by 5%, less than 5%.
Holy shit.
This Friday, like the Friday before you guys are going to hear this, they voted actually to allot them more money to hire more police officers.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true. I mean, the Buffalo guy, the old man that got knocked down, they dropped the charges against all the officers. Like, they truly are capitalizing on our short attention spans as much as possible, and just being like, okay, you've already forgotten about this. And it's like, I fucking haven't.
I think that's where Connolly was at that time, man. Because he's like, okay, yeah, they told you they were going to pass the home rule bill. Well, where is it?
Yeah,
right?
Like, we're waiting. Like, I know there's a world war, but like, fucking just get on with it.
Yeah, they'll promise anything when you're paying attention, and then move on.
They'll find excuses and distractions, and that is truly, especially now, I feel like how it works. Like, I think in the Trump era, it was more like distractions are like petty and like scandalous and shit like that. And now the distractions are like cutesy. It's like Biden's dog gave a press conference. Stupid shit. Like, fucking, they had this video of like Biden and his wife putting up like these really horribly ugly like Valentine's hearts across their yard, and I'm like, this isn't what I want. Go back to work.
That's funny. No, I didn't even see that.
It's bad. It's stupid. I didn't watch the video. I just saw a clip I just saw like the still, and I was like, I can't with you.
So that's where Connolly was, and so he says, fuck it, we'll do a rebellion.
Nice.
The problem is the ICA is not very big.
Oh.
Right, so the Citizens Army might not be able to actually pull this off, and that's what the IRB, the Republican Brotherhood, the secret society with the ropes.
Yeah.
They were worried about that. They're like, this is going to fail, and the British are going to show up and,
smush.
mop it up and also mop up us. They're going to catch on to our plans, which we've slowly been working on. So they bring in Connolly and they say, hey, look, work with us, team up with us. Don't do a rebellion yet. Wait till Easter. All right, Easter, 1916. Okay. That's when we'll do it. Can you work with us there? Can you wait till that long? And he's like, yeah, sure, let's do it. Okay. Easter, 1916. That's when we'll do it.
Let's do it. I'm going to start celebrating Easter in a different way, aren't I?
Yeah, we should commemorate this every time. They start training, drilling, organizing, all this stuff. And it's like, it's pretty open in some ways. They're like, okay, this day we're going to do like a parade.
Wow, a parade. Can you imagine if like we're going to have a socialist parade? Like, oh my God, we would all die.
Yeah. And the British, and that's because of the lessons they learn here, because they parade with, in formations and shit and do like drills, and the British are like,
that's cute.
they're kind of like racist about it in a way, because they're Irish. I mean, they can't plan. Like, they can't effectively plan this rebellion. They can't plan anything. Like they're not going to be able to do it. The volunteers, so they were doing this, right? They also like weren't letting everybody in on the plan that they had put together. They had a secret, like a military council within the volunteers, and some of them were like in the Brotherhood group, and some weren't. And so they only like the few would
inner
know about
circle,
this, right?
yeah. But everyone else was just drilling and doing their own thing,
right? And so one guy like Ian McNeill, he was the chief of staff of the volunteers, but he was considered too moderate. So they were like, don't tell him.
Oh, shit.
But eventually he kind of finds out. He looks, looks around and is like, are we planning a rebellion,
That's really awkward. Oh, God.
And they're like, yeah.
Yeah, you got us.
He threatens to reveal it.
Okay, but like how much of a reveal? I guess maybe the specifics of the rebellion, I guess.
Well, he's just threatening to like get in the way, to stop it.
Shit.
By whatever means he can, except for ratting to the British. He's like, I'm not
that bad.
I won't do that, but
I won't tell Dad, but
yes. And so they deal with that by telling him like, well, shut up, we're doing it. Connolly, a guy named Patrick Pearse, and Tom Clark, they're like in this inner circle. Patrick Pearse is more of he's not a socialist really. He's just an idealist sort of, but he's, big he's a teacher. He's a big like orator, speechwriter sort of guy, inspirational figure in the revolutionary movement. Tom Clark, he was also in the revolution. He had also kind of like Connolly spent some time in America. He served prison time for his involvement in revolutionary activities. So he's also kind of one of the OG guys there.
All right.
Anyway, the British, like we said, they thought this was all...
They're like, that's cute. That's not going to work.
Right. But, however, that was a stupid approach to it. Less stupidly than that, they were monitoring rebel communications.
Ooh, okay.
So maybe this was where some of their confidence was coming from. They find out that there's going to be a shipment of German guns to the rebels.
Oh, gosh.
Which was indeed happening. They were getting a big shipment of arms from Germany that was going to help them, get ready for the rebellion.
Was this still during World War I?
Oh, yeah.
That's very awkward.
Yeah, it is. Enemy of my enemy, very much,
I guess. That's a rough one.
But at least it's the Kaiser's Germany, which is nowhere near as bad as like Nazi Germany later.
Yes,
so That's just,
It's a low bar, but sure.
All sides are kind of shitty in an imperialist war.
Yeah.
So they find out about that. The volunteers, the nationalists they're too unorganized to get out there on time to actually pick up the gun shipments. So like the ship is just hanging out there in the harbor. And then so the British just show up and they're like, cool. The Germans have to scuttle the ship and run away.
That sucks.
Yeah. That's
a bad one.
It's bad.
Yeah.
So with no guns coming, McNeill, the guy who found out about the rebellion, he's like, this is definitely going to fail now.
Yeah.
And so he sends one of his friends out to spread the word and say, don't do the rebellion.
How does that go?
And he takes out an ad in the paper for Easter Sunday saying, don't do the rebellion.
Everybody stay home.
It doesn't say don't do the rebellion, but it says don't go to the demonstrations, don't do any of the things. Because they haven't announced we're doing the rebellion on this day.
Yeah.
This is called like the countermanding order that he gives, saying don't do it.
Okay, your chicken's out.
However, the leadership's like, fuck it, we're already in it. Let's do it.
Oh my gosh. You don't have guns. What's your plan?
Well, we'll see.
Okay.
More than half the volunteers end up staying home because of this. They're planning around 4,000 plus people.
Okay.
They end up getting like 2,000.
That's not good. Okay, bad start.
They've showed up. They're kind of standing around waiting on Sunday.
Okay.
Like Sunday kind of afternoon-ish, they're standing around like, what's going to happen? This is not enough people.
Okay.
Fuck.
Shit.
Right?
Okay.
And this is mostly in Dublin. This was supposed to happen kind of nationwide, but it gets really curtailed because of all the things falling through. Yeah. They decide, basically, that striking a really long shot, striking a very likely to fail blow, is better than striking no blow at all.
Wow. Okay.
We've come this far. we need to go ahead and try it and see what happens.
Oh, God, okay.
We might succeed. And if we fail, hopefully we fail forward.
All right.
James Connolly's daughter, Nora, had come to kind of like see him when he's doing this thing. And I saw this documentary, they had an interview with her.
Uh-huh.
And she was saying that she said, "Daddy, we're not going to fight." And he turned to me and 2 big tears rolled down his cheeks. And he said, "If we don't fight, Nora, we can only pray for an earthquake to come and swallow us in our shame."
Wow. I mean, I kind of get why they chose to continue, because it's like, if they didn't, then I feel like, I mean, Britain already was like listening in and shit, you know, like it just felt like you kind of lost either way. So you might as well go down fighting.
Yeah. Nothing good's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
Afterward. They're not going to say, "Oh, well.
Thanks for not rebelling. We'll be nice to you now." Like, that's not how that would work.
You were irresponsible. Like, you're not going to get anything for that. Yeah. So yeah, they do go ahead with it. They say, let's do it.
Okay.
It's better to, like you said, better to go down fighting. So here goes the rising, Easter Rising.
Okay.
The plan, you said, what's the plan? Here's the plan.
What's the plan?
We're going to take key points of the city.
Okay.
The British are going to show up and we're going to hold them off.
Sounds like a simple plan.
As long as we can. And we're going to inspire people to join our cause. We're going to inspire the world to look and say, those British people are assholes. And let's see what, hopefully things fix by the time, while we're still standing.
Okay.
That's the plan.
Okay.
And so you have the Irish Volunteers, you have the ICA join up together. They also join up with a group called the Cumana Ban.
Okay.
Which is a women's paramilitary group.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. They do a mix of like support work, but also like just straight up joining up with the troops.
Awesome.
And shit. Yeah, they're super cool. Not sure if that's exactly how you say it. I think that's how I heard it on the documentary. It's not at all spelled like that, but
okay.
There they are.
If you get our Patreon, you'll be able to see the notes and read them. So
yes. So the goal here is let's take key points in the city. So they move to key points in Dublin. They take the general post office. That's where like the headquarters is going to be.
Uh-huh.
And they start digging in. They start getting ready.
Okay.
They throw up barricades. They dig trenches.
Mm-hmm.
This ends up being kind of stupid because they took like this park, right?
Uh-huh.
And they dug trenches into it because that's what you do, man. I mean, World War I's going on.
Like,
you see, that's what you do in war.
That's the war thing you do. Okay.
However, this park is surrounded by buildings that you should take the rooftops of and then just hold the park that way.
Yeah, that'd be smarter, huh?
Yeah, but hey.
It's cool. I was going to say you live and you learn, but you probably don't in that case.
You don't live in this case, many of you. They issue the Proclamation. Let me pull this up. The Proclamation of the Irish Republic.
Okay.
Also known as the 1916 Proclamation or the Easter Proclamation.
Okay.
That they print it out, they distribute it. Patrick Pearse reads it on the steps of the post office. It begins, "Irish men and Irish women, in the name of God and the dead generations from which she receives her old tradition of nationhood, Ireland through us summons her children to her flag and strikes for her freedom." Which is a dramatic
That's very dramatic.
beginning to it. And the inclusion here, and I believe they mentioned them later as well, the allegiance of every Irish man and Irish woman.
Mm-hmm.
The inclusion of Irish women is pretty much ascribed single-handedly to James Connolly.
Nice. Okay.
Who said, we got to do this.
Fuck yeah.
There's also a passage in here that I imagine has its inspiration, which is, "We declare the right of the people of Ireland to the ownership of Ireland and to the unfettered control of Irish destinies."
Fuck yeah. Sounds great.
So, yeah. The rest of it's just kind of like liberty and let's fight.
It sounds very nationalist, but that's cool.
Yeah. But they issue that declaration. They say, we're our own country. It's very aspirational because this is a very small group.
Yeah. This is the pep talk.
Yes. And so the rest of it unfolds. They make a big mistake because they don't capture Dublin Castle.
Oh, man.
Which sounds like, okay, well, they only had 2,000 people. How are they going to capture a castle?
Yeah, that's big. Okay.
It's big and empty. They had like 6 British troops, police and troops there. 6 people.
Wait, 6 people in the castle and they couldn't take them down?
6 people. And well, they didn't know. They thought Connolly, actually, he's leading one of the contingents. And he leads his guys up there. And there's like one dude who, I think one guy was armed. And he like shot a revolver 3 times.
Shit.
And Connolly's guys were like, oh shit, this place is occupied.
Oh no.
And they didn't take it.
Oh, that
they retreated.
sucks.
So, our man's cool, cool ideas. But he's not a battlefield commander, I guess.
It's not his thing. That's okay. Wouldn't fucking be my thing, that's for sure.
That would be the Christine battalion.
Shit, they got
guns. Like runs away.
Fuck no. I'm out of here.
So they failed to take Dublin Castle, which, I was like, okay, big deal. But this was apparently like the center of...
It's like the center of town, right?
And it's kind of a big symbol of like, it'd be like taking the Bastille in the French Revolution. It's a big symbol. It'd be the headlines. Mm-hmm. It'd be, the people take Dublin Castle.
That'd be cool.
Or Dublin Castle falls. You fly the Irish flag over it.
Yeah. That'd be pretty cool.
You might rally the rest of your people that stayed home,
Damn, what would have happened if like he had just gone forward and taken it? That'd be crazy.
I think it also could have, while it would have unfolded differently, it's hard to say that it would have been an overall victory. But yeah.
But the symbol, I think, would be very powerful. Yeah. Like you said.
So they end up, they've seized some points in cities. They haven't seized others. The British declare martial law.
Yep.
Fighting breaks out. There's tension between this small group of people that have started this, this insurrection, this rebellion, and the regular people who are living there.
Oh, yeah. That's probably awkward.
A lot of them are pissed.
Yeah.
They say, you want to fight, go to France. They're fighting over there.
Yeah. That's okay. That's another thing. A lot of people sign up for the war. Do they just have probably young boys and older guys or something, I mean, they didn't have a draft, did they?
No, they didn't yet.
Okay.
No. Not of Irish people anyway. I don't know if they were drafting in England at the time, probably. But they hadn't drafted. I know they hadn't had a draft act in Ireland yet.
They did in England because Branson got drafted in Downton Abbey.
Ah, there you go. But I know that was like a fear of people, and actually the revolutionaries wanted there to be a draft so more people would be on their side. But it hadn't happened yet. But anyway, people were pissed at them because, like you said, their husbands, their sons were all fighting. And they had seized the post office, so they couldn't go in and get letters or payments from their loved ones, which I guess kind of spoke to me of kind of a disconnect between this small group and the people, which should not have been there.
Yeah, that's the problem when you keep things so underground, is you lose that connection.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, where I guess in past theory episodes, we mentioned the mass line or how the Panthers would do that as well. In terms of that Maoist idea of staying connected with the base of the people that you're fighting with and for.
Yeah.
It should be, definitely with rather than separate.
Yeah. That sucks.
Yeah. The British, for their part, also do some way shittier things.
I'm sure.
Something that James Connolly was like, no way, they won't do this. They won't shell their own city. I mean, this is where the government is here. They can't just shell it.
Do they shell it?
They shell it.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. They start firing mortars into Dublin.
They do the shock and awe.
Boom.
Yeah.
Yeah. And lots of people die.
Yeah, I bet.
How many? So casualty wise.
Oh no.
This ends up being on the combatant side of things. You've got the Irish rebel forces, 66 killed.
Okay, that's not that many.
With the British forces, you've got 143 killed.
That's okay.
You have almost around 400 of them wounded. No one knows how many Irish rebels were wounded. However, you do have 260 civilians killed.
Oh, fuck. Okay.
Something around, 2,000 plus wounded.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, hey, that's what happens when you start shelling a city.
Yeah, shit.
The rebels had killed a couple of civilians. They had, I don't know ultimately how many they'd killed, but I do know a couple of instances. This old guy was like getting something from one of the carts used in the barricades, and they were like trying to tell him to stop, and then someone fucking shot him.
Wow, okay.
And I was like, okay, don't do that. What the fuck?
Yeah, that's a bad one.
But I don't, there are probably others.
Yeah.
But I imagine that the shelling
would do a lot of that.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And the British also would just fucking execute people.
Okay.
In case of civilians, they basically formed a perimeter around the area that the rebels had controlled and started like closing in.
Wow.
And they captured this one neighborhood, or they were, this is house to house fighting.
Yeah.
And they captured this one neighborhood that they saw as like a hotbed of resistance. They just executed the dudes there.
Shit.
And took out and executed like 15 guys.
Jesus. Okay.
Connolly ends up getting wounded, like a sniper shoots him in the leg.
Mm-hmm.
So he ends up seriously wounded from that. Because of the shelling, like big parts of the city are on fire.
Yeah.
Eventually, Patrick Pearse, one of the leaders who we said, the teacher, the inspiration, the kind of poet guy, he looks out from the post office and sees in the street 2 dead old men holding like a bloodied white flag of truce.
Oh.
And he says, we gotta surrender. We have lost. We know that.
Yeah.
We were fighting to prove ourselves. We got to save people's lives here.
Yeah.
So he goes out. He surrenders for them. This was just like 6 days.
Wow.
That the brief Irish Republic existed.
Wow. That sucks.
Yeah, the rising was crushed. And the crazy thing is, from all this, is that this initial rising was very unpopular.
I mean, the results weren't great, so yeah.
In the immediate, when it was happening, in the immediate aftermath, people were pissed.
Yeah. People being like who? Regular citizens or like around the world?
Yeah. Regular citizens.
Okay.
The around the world reaction is interesting too, but regular citizens in Ireland, in Dublin, were like, that was bullshit, guys. Like,
Guys.
You got people killed. You got the British Army in here killing us. You knew this wasn't going to work.
Yeah. Strategically
it was
not
disloyal
sound.
to your country at a time when our people are out there fighting and dying for it.
Whatever. That part sucks. But the other
that's
part,
how ordinary people were seeing it.
Yeah. I could see it.
It wasn't, there were people who sympathized with them. And there were a lot of people, sure, who sympathized with it and like thought that wasn't the right way to do it or something,
What's interesting is that we were talking earlier about like governments making excuses and having this excuse of like, we're fighting a war right now. It's like, seems like an awfully convenient way to get people to not rebel. And it's like, wonder why we're in so many wars like all the time.
Oh, yeah. We decided just never to cancel the Afghanistan one.
Yeah.
That's why we're still in there 20 years later. More than half our lives.
Yeah, we were watching this. They have those documentary series. They're just like called like the 2000s or whatever. And so we were watching that. I think it's on HBO Max now. And yeah, it is just crazy to see how they just literally looked for the evidence they wanted, and we're like, okay, we're doing a war now.
Yep.
And it's just like, how much of that is just to get power? Like, come on, man. It's pretty bad.
Yep. Palpatine level shit there.
For sure.
So yeah, it's weird that it is initially unpopular, like we said, all the kind of struggles with the people that the people faced because of it.
Yeah.
Kind of understandable why they didn't like it.
I think that's fair.
The British changed that.
Oh, did they come in and crush people?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. They gave him a real enemy.
Yeah, they decide, oh, you thought that Easter Rising sucked. Check this out. So they decide, okay, the leaders of the Rising, they're going to execute them.
Wow.
Which, okay. They rebelled against their country. standards of the time.
Yeah.
That's kind of what they do. So, but the way they do this, though, however, is like slowly, not like, I don't mean like torturing wise. I just mean like they'd execute some people, like a few of them, and then they'd be like, a few days later, they execute some more. It was just a slow, steady stream of executing these guys.
Was it because they were like still capturing them, or is it because they wanted like more press or something?
I'm not sure. I don't know if it was just like disorganized or what, but they
took their time about it.
And they're not really announcing it like, oh, we killed it. So they have arrested tons of people.
Yeah.
They also went around to places that had not had really insurrections at all, which is everywhere besides Dublin.
Basically.
They've gone around and just arrested anybody that they suspect enemy of the state or possible subversive or whatever.
Okay.
So mass arrests.
Yeah.
They got all these guys in prison in addition to the people that they're actually executing.
Shit.
And they, people, what do they hear from the jail but just, a volley of shots every once in a while. They don't know if they're fucking executing everybody that they've arrested. Mass execution. They have no idea. It's not mass executions. They execute like 16 people.
But it's scary.
Yeah, people are left to their imagination like, what are they doing? They're fucking butchering us now, dude.
Jeez, okay.
People start to get pissed. They say the British are overreacting. And they also, in addition to the mass arrests, there's just, huge like police presence everywhere now.
They go full empire on them.
And Britain's not saying, oh, you guys are good. You guys didn't participate in it. They're just like, we're over here with you Irish people who did this rebellion.
They lump them all together. So they treat them all like shit. Also, they probably would have treated them like shit before because they're racist.
Sure. But it, does nothing to, I guess when people are witnessing this now, they were initially like, those guys, were assholes and got people killed. But now they're just witnessing one side who's just slowly murdering folks.
Yeah, and they're like, man, maybe there was a reason that they like rose up because these guys do suck.
Yeah, when you're looking at it, okay, do I side with the guys who are, gradually executing people or the guys getting executed? It's like, well, these guys seem better. Yeah. I mean, they're not doing executions.
Right.
American opinion, you were asking about, what do people think abroad? So in America, the New York Times, I guess, slow weekend news because they ran stories of the Easter Rising for like 2 straight weeks.
Wow.
They were the developments leading up to it, after all through it. Front page of the New York Times every time.
Cool.
Like, this was at a time when around a third of Manhattan was Irish born. That's how many immigrants we had in America. So, it was a very popular story.
Yeah. And like Chicago too, and like Boston, like all up there.
Yeah, all the major population centers. American opinion was already kind of, it quickly swayed onto the side of the Easter Rising. Because, they read a lot into it of like, they're fighting for freedom. They're
a lot of nationalist stuff. They like that part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a big deal because the American diplomat talking to, the British who really, really, really want America's help in the war.
I bet.
Or at least not their opposition in the war at this stage.
Yeah.
They're like, shit, sorry, we don't mean to be assholes,
Yeah, that's awkward.
Internationally, in terms of socialists, most socialists in Europe, which is the majority of the socialists at the time, saw it as dumb.
Really? Is it because it was so nationalist?
It's because, so they...
and it was kind of a coalition, right?
They saw it as too nationalist. They saw... which is dumb because these guys, like, had all fractured and supported their governments in World War I. Like,
right?
An imperialist war.
Yeah.
But now they're like, how could you guys be nationalist?
It's like, what you're literally doing that right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. A lot of Bolsheviks in Russia.
Yeah.
Who had not yet pulled off their revolution yet, but they were, almost there. Most of them opposed it or thought it was dumb.
Why? Were they jealous? They're like, we were about to do that.
They accused it of being a putsch, a coup, a not popularly backed attempt to seize power.
Okay. They weren't with the people enough, they thought.
Right. Exceptions include Lenin.
Cool.
So Lenin just basically said, insurrections are good, period.
I like it.
He was just like, did they fight against the government? Cool.
I'm into it.
And he also said, in addition to that, like, hey, it's a blow against the fucking British Empire, so good.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And they failed, but we learned something from it.
Yeah.
All our losses are lessons.
I didn't realize this was before Russia. That's kind of crazy.
Okay, yeah, it is. It's before the Russian Revolution. I think in some ways inspires them somewhat, it's, like I said, a lesson at least to make sure, like, to seize important parts of the city, make sure you don't leave anything out.
Be with the people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's cool.
Trotsky, he defended it as well.
I like Trotsky usually.
Yeah.
I'd love to get to an episode on him because I always find him very charming.
We should. He has some, I don't know, he's controversial.
Okay, never mind.
I don't know if he's controversial for reasons that we would, it's just on the left.
Okay.
Lenin's
got more fanboys.
Yeah. But he defended it. He said, this is good. It's a synthesis of nationalism, sure, but it's also got this anti-imperialism part to it. It's he's kind of saw it as it blends nationalism with this anti-imperialism, and it's a good thing in the context. Like it's a war of national liberation.
Yeah,
and you got to use some nationalism to make that
get
happen.
there. Yeah, like whatever you need to do.
And he said it was good for workers. It's just that's what it's ultimately. If it's fighting empire, it's going to eventually help the workers one way or the other.
Hell yeah. All right, cool.
Included in the people who were executed on May 12th is when James Connolly is executed. He was captured, he had been wounded, so he was kept in like a hospital.
Yeah.
He was allowed to see his family.
Oh.
And they, came in, kind of a tearful goodbye basically because he's about to get executed.
Yeah, geez.
So Connolly was executed on May 12th, 1916. He was so badly, injured. Like I said, he'd been wounded by sniper fire. He was unable to stand before the firing squad. They took him out to the prison courtyard on a stretcher and, strapped him down to a chair.
Oh, my God. That's a rough way to go out.
Apparently, according to accounts, when we did our episode on Che Guevara, we talked about how he met his death bravely and said, "Shoot, coward, you're only killing a man."
Yeah.
Connolly didn't have a line like that, but still went out bravely, apparently,
Yeah.
puffs out his chest, holds his chin up high, and faces his murderers, looks him in the eye. But he's killed, yeah. And this is a very, everybody liked Connolly, even people who weren't socialists or anything. Unless you were like a diehard unionist, you liked Connolly.
Wow.
And so this pissed people off a lot.
Yeah.
And they're like, what the hell? This guy strapped him to a chair, buried him along with the other executed people in a mass grave.
Wow.
And these people who had not supported it before are now saying, well, they're rising, man. They were better than we knew,
Yeah. Yeah. Man. Way to go, England. You really shot the bed.
Yeah. And so you see a move from supporting the implementation of home rule and all that to saying, fuck it, that's not enough. We want a republic, an independent, an independent Ireland. We want what these guys fought for because they were, obviously they were the good guys and we just didn't see it.
Yeah, they're on to something.
Yeah.
Cool.
So Irish people start to see the rising as good. They start to see, open their eyes to see the British as shitty.
Yeah.
And this will lead to, eventually this will lead to the election of 1918.
Okay.
Which it's the first election with an expanded electorate. Now, we don't want to say it's like everybody could vote, but it was better than it was before.
Okay.
So for men...
How bad was it?
So for men, you had to be over 21, but you didn't have to own any property. Before this election, you had to pay an annual rental of £10 or hold land that was valued at £10, which I guess was more back then.
Yikes.
So you had to be rich enough to vote, basically,
That
and be
sucks.
old enough. Now you just had to be old enough. For women, you had to be over 30 years old and meet minimum property requirements as well. So you had to be a rich enough woman.
So you still had to own property if you were a woman.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Or your husband had to.
Yeah.
So if your husband qualified, then you were good. But so anyway, it's bullshit. But it is, I guess, more people could vote in this election is what I wanted to say. But anyway, in this election in 1918, a lot of things had changed.
Uh-huh.
Because you remember the party Sinn Féin that we talked about?
Mm-hmm.
They were kind of moderate. But they did want Ireland to be like its own country. But
okay.
They have evolved by this point. Now they are straight up, nationalist Republicans.
Nice.
They want a Republic of Ireland separate from the United Kingdom.
Nice.
And another big thing has changed for them. A good number of their members had participated in the Easter Rising.
Mm-hmm.
But their leadership, them as a party, they had not. Right? However, everybody saw their members in the Rising. And for some reason, they basically got pinned with the Rising itself.
Oh.
In the press especially, frequently they would refer to it as the Sinn Féin Rising.
Wow.
Or they would refer to the rebels as the Sinn Féiners. Like this was a big, they
got a lot of
stumbled
credit.
into. Yeah.
That's crazy. I wonder if it's also because so many of the other guys got arrested or killed.
It could be. Yeah, it could be
especially
possible
leadership wise.
The more radical members. Yeah. Yeah. That, and I guess also, they were the most radical group out there in terms of the national question.
Yeah.
They weren't for home rule. They were the only group kind of not for home rule besides, I guess, the smaller socialist parties.
Yeah.
And so they get, they get a lot of credit, like you said, for the Rising. And by this point, people have decided that actually the Rising was good.
Nice.
And so Sinn Féin ends up winning something like 3/4 of the seats.
Holy shit.
From Ireland proper. So this is part of the UK general elections. All right. And they get 73 out of the 100-something seats.
Hachi-machi.
Landslide victory.
Yeah.
Pretty much only in Ulster, where the Unionists win big.
Yeah.
They get 20-something seats there. Pretty much all the seats
it's all from
they
them.
get. It's a big divide, right? It's Sinn Féin across the board, Unionists up here.
Yeah.
That's how the elections go. A landslide victory that they are really feeling, man. They're feeling pretty good about that.
Bet.
And so one thing that they had promised, as this Republican Party, as this separatist party, was that they weren't, if you elected them, they weren't planning on going to Parliament. They were planning on, not abstaining, doing their own thing, leading Ireland ourselves.
Okay.
Right? And when they get this many people, when they get this many seats, they're like, great. Everyone loves us. Let's do it.
Cool.
21st of January, 1919. The elected representatives from Sinn Féin do like they said they were going to do. They refuse to take their seats in Parliament. And instead of that, they declare an independent Irish Republic and they form their own parliament called the Dáil Éireann.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
We'll do it ourselves.
I wish we can do that.
We should form a party where we say we're not going to the House of Representatives or the Senate. We're forming our own Soviets and deal with it.
That'd be great. That's insane.
Yeah. And that's, that starts the Irish Wars of Independence. I think that's where we'll kind of come to a stopping point for now.
Oh, man.
We'll revisit these guys. The Wars for Independence, later on the Civil War, and then the Troubles.
Okay. That one's just vague and ominous.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a shitty name because it's like, I don't know, it sounds like it has kind of a British perspective of, there's a little bit of troubles going on.
Yeah, it sounds very petty.
Yeah, but it's not. It's like it's a war for liberation, and
it's a big deal.
I don't know. We'll get into it later, but it is a big deal. Yeah. So
It's kind of trivializing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Wow, that was a lot. I love when you just tell me a story.
Well, I hope, I didn't cover everything. I mean, there's so much going on, we'll see some more of these same characters later. Some people we didn't really mention, they didn't have like the biggest impact yet, but they will. We got Michael Collins, Eamon de Valera, tons of guys that we still even need to mention that were playing a part here, but
okay.
Overview.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is just an overview, y'all.
Yeah.
We'll get to it. Well, cool. That was really cool. I have questions.
Yeah.
Let me pull up my notes.
Let's do it.
So I guess these aren't really questions. These are more like topics for discussion.
I like it.
All right. So I want to talk about nationalism because I think you and I were raised and, now believe in a time of like, nationalism here is bad.
Yes. Correct.
So, but it's really interesting because as we're talking about this, and I think this also happened in Open Veins a lot too, there's a lot of these nationalist movements. And I'm like, okay, it doesn't have to be bad. I think it's just when you pair it with imperialism, it's defo bad.
Yes.
And I feel like it can easily go bad.
It can, yeah. I mean, when you, like you said, when you start doing imperialism with it.
Or racism.
Or racism, yeah. When it's used as a way to oppress, then it's bad. When it's used to oppress, when it's used to oppress the capitalist, that's not really oppressing. That's just going to war with the capitalists. And that's
whatever.
Good. But if it's used to oppress, like the common people.
I just think that's an interesting theme throughout these revolutions, and like I thought it was interesting that some of like the Russians didn't like that, because I'm like, I mean, it's not like they weren't. I guess they weren't nationalists. They're just purely worker-led or worker-driven.
It depends on who. Yeah,
depends on who you're talking about, but
they weren't nationalists though because they weren't. Russia wasn't a country that was dominated by any other group. So when you're talking about countries that are dominated by imperialist powers, you want nationalism as a way to rally people against that oppressor.
Yeah,
it's a good way to get people to work together to throw off the yoke.
Yeah, that's a good point because here we don't need nationalism because like we're the bad guys.
We're the yoke. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like being a nationalist for like the Empire in Star Wars. It's like you don't need to do that. Like they're already in charge.
The Russians were the same way. They were imperialist against all these, these republics that break out later in terms of like the Baltic states and various other they were doing empire. So you don't want to be cheering for them,
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that's an interesting, I guess, I don't know, because I see the appeal of nationalism in some ways because like I do think culture is powerful and it can tie us together in meaningful ways, but like you just have to be careful about how you use it, I guess.
And that was a big part that we really didn't highlight in this is that Irish culture, a revival of Irish culture was a big part of the lead up to the rising, the lead up to the revolution is people were saying, Patrick Pearse and these guys were saying like, we should, embrace the Irish language again. We should embrace, Gaelic sports like Gaelic football, and dress and poems and plays and stuff that embraces our history, our culture. That was a big part of the movement as well. Didn't really align as much with socialists, so we didn't focus on it. But
yeah, I mean they did that in Mexico too. They're like, okay, yeah, like let's embrace our like mestizo culture and like really show that. And they even did that. I mean, this is my next note for discussion is through religion too. Like they would like use like symbols like the Virgin Mary and stuff for like ways to rise up. And I don't know, it's interesting because like I'm not a religious person, so we could do a whole episode and several episodes about like how religion and socialism can or don't or should or not should interact.
Yeah, we could, and I think we'd have some interesting things to talk about because, I've occasionally peppered a couple of verses here and there just because I like its appeal. And so I think we could have some fruitful discussions there.
Yeah, it's an interesting tool and I don't mind when people use it. I think, again, it's the oppression game.
Yeah, it has a dangerous edge to it. You were talking about the Mexico example, or you're talking about like the war for independence there.
Yeah.
Or like because in that, you end up afterward fighting like liberals versus conservatives. There's this like religious element to that too. This anti-clericalism versus like, let's make the religion official and like, you know, like there's
like there's a lot
mad.
of land issues with the church, like and tax issues. So like you have to be careful about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think in this case, I guess it becomes a problem once it'll become it'll become part of the problem later on, the religious element of it. Because it serves to divide, keep the North and the South divided.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, those were my two big points. Just like, I think it feels like that revolution was very like coalition based. And so like they're using whatever tools they had to reach people. And I thought that was interesting. Because it sounded like it was like a lot of little groups.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, is there wasn't like a main, we are the leading force behind this. Until you get Sinn Féin in power and do this at the very end there.
They fall into it.
Yeah, they end up, hilarious. Oh, whoa, shit, we're in charge. But like, yeah, you're right. There's all these different groups working sort of with each other, kind of.
Yeah.
So kind of all you could agree on was, we like Ireland. We don't like Britain. We want Ireland to,
have more control. Power. Yeah. Some degree of that, depending on,
not be dominated. Yeah, I guess that's part of the reason it's kind of so open-ended.
Mm-hmm. I think that's interesting too, because of how different people interpreted it. Like you had Americans being like, sounds good, because they just saw the nationalist part and were like, I love liberty, it's my fave.
Yeah. My father came from Ireland. Yeah. Well, I came from Ireland,
Yeah, and then like you'd have Russians be like, nah, this is too national. Like I thought that was very interesting, is the reaction.
Yeah. And it does make sense. You have very few people who have such a direct connection with Ireland and Russia than you do compared to America. And that is a simplistic, and there's no class analysis behind that. I don't want to say it's how people should look at it, but I think it's a very human reaction to be like, those are my people. And if you're raised, and you would be raised, if you were raised in Ireland in a Catholic area of it, if you were raised as a common person there, you'd be raised like on the stories of what the British had done to your people for generations. For sure.
I can totally see that.
So, again, it's not a sophisticated way to look at it, but I could see where people would have that feeling.
Yeah.
I also thought it was interesting, the aspect of the failure of the Rising. Like it fucking failed. Right?
Yeah, that was very bad.
They got crushed.
Yeah. And like the people weren't even for it. Like that's pretty rough.
Yeah. But I was looking at it, and it seems like it's almost like a propaganda of the deed situation. Mm-hmm. We're going to go do this thing, and we might fail, and we'll probably, we may die. Very likely. But they do end up, like, propaganda of the deed almost never works.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Like, we've seen, what was it? Berkman going up there and shooting, and not even killing, ending up shooting that guy.
Yeah.
And it usually just ends up in backlash against your group.
Just one guy just gets executed, and everyone's, like, mad at you.
People get arrested, yeah. And in this case, people did get arrested. People got executed. But I guess it was so unfairly applied that it inspired people to action.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. I mean, not cool, but I thought it was interesting that, that people initially, like, in Ireland didn't like it. And then, like, the British just made it so much fucking worse than they needed to. But, like, I think I'm very curious, like, if they hadn't done this, like, I think it would have been a much slower rise of that movement. And I think that's what you're seeing now in the States, where it's just like, we don't have a movement. And so we're all just kind of dying slowly. so we're just like kind of just getting like ground down into nubs, basically.
Yeah, for sure.
Bummer.
We're doing too much of the moderating, of the sail trimming. We got to demand the earth.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Literally, please don't destroy the earth.
Yes, demand
Can we have
that
the
earth
still?
keeps existing. So what do you think of our guy, James Connolly? He was a prominent figure here, and there were lots of actors possible to focus on, but I wanted to focus on him because he's the revolutionary guy,
I liked him a lot. I liked all of his shit. I loved his kind of like intersectionality element of like tying in like, all right, feminism, all right, anti-imperialism, all right, anti-capitalism. Like those are my favorite things.
Yes.
So yeah. I mean, I guess I'd be a little de-Leonist and be like, yeah, the religion part's on my fave, but that's cool. You do you.
Yeah.
Just don't make me do it. That's fine. So.
And he definitely didn't want to make anyone do that. That's a good point to bring up that I think I left out when I was mentioning the Declaration.
Mm-hmm. It's not like they would like hate Protestants for being Protestants. They probably just didn't like them because they didn't want Ireland to be free.
Oh yeah, no. It's not even that they didn't like them. They were openly appealing to Protestants to join in.
Yeah, like come on, this will be cool for you.
Especially James Connolly and people in his movement. They were saying we've got to appeal to Protestant working class people. Like that whole religion thing. The British are using that to divide us. Mm-hmm. It makes no sense for us to be fighting against them. We have to, unite with them. That's the only way we're going to win.
For sure.
But yeah, they definitely wanted to work with them. In the Proclamation, they say the Republic guarantees religious and civil liberty, equal rights, and equal opportunities to all its citizens, and declares its resolve to pursue the happiness of blah blah blah. But like
everybody's in
there. Yeah, everybody join up.
But yeah, I thought he was super cool. I mean, not a great battle guy, but that's cool. You don't have to be good at everything. and I did look him up, and while I don't think he's hot, I do think he's cute. So, like, I would go on a date with him.
Yeah, he's.
He looks sweet.
Don't have heroes, but he's only shitty at battle. It seems like.
Yeah, yeah. He wasn't like racist, right? We always got to ask that question.
So no, that's the thing. I did not find any instances of him being, bigoted,
problematic,
problematic. Any of these things. I mean, he was, like I said, pretty much people liked him if they knew him. Yeah,
I mean, I think that comes down to his overall like internationalist, anti-imperialist approach. Because when he's talking about all those places, like you immediately realize, like, no, he fucking cares about brown people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, he's dope. James Connolly, be like him.
I like him. All right, did we do it? Are we done?
We did it.
Well, we're like a fourth of the way done, but
oh yeah, for sure. There's so much more.
That's cool. We'll have a series.
Yeah, but this was, like I said, just kind of introducing this concept of Ireland fighting for its freedom, fighting for the people, fighting against imperialism.
Yeah. We're always into that.
Yeah.
All right. What are we doing next week?
Next week, we're gonna watch a movie.
Hell yeah, that's good. I figured I'd give you a break from researching. And I didn't want to research again, so movie.
All right. We're going to watch Judas and the Black Messiah.
Nice. All right. So this is about the Black Panthers, right? Fred Hampton?
Hell yeah. Yeah, this is about Fred Hampton and the FBI informant, Bill O'Neill, who infiltrated his way in and led to Hampton's murder at the hands of the FBI. I think it's Chicago police, actually.
All right. So, yeah, we've already talked about the Black Panthers. That is episode 29, if you want to go back and listen to that. But, yeah, I'm excited to get to this. I remember we saw this was coming out, like, pretty close to when we started the podcast, and we immediately put it on our list. So, yeah, we've been waiting. I've heard mixed reviews, too, so I'm excited.
Interesting. Okay.
Like, someone said it wasn't left enough, and then some other people said it was good, so who knows?
I imagine, yeah.
I imagine it's not, because it's Hollywood. Okay, I'm excited though. That'll be fun.
Yeah. Closer look at a subject we've talked some about, but again, that was also pretty much an overview of. So there's always more to get into.
So that is on HBO Max if you want to go watch that or steal an account from somebody, however you get your paws on it. And if not, we'll just tell you about it. So tune in next week for that.
Sounds good.
Okay, in the meantime, if you need your communist internet fix, you can find that on these places, such as Instagram at teachmecommunism, Twitter at teachcommunism. You can send us an email, teachmecommunism@gmail.com. Are you sensing a theme here? But you can send us an email if you want to send us a question or suggestion for a future episode. Cool stuff like that. You can also leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. That is a super helpful way for people to find the show. So please go rate and review us there.
Do it. Tell everyone, tell us and everyone how great we are.
That would be great for me personally. What else? We have a Patreon. Patreon.com/teachmecommunism. For $5 a month, you get access to our notes. I'm sure Grady's notes for this are very robust.
Yeah, it's a lot. It kind of tailed off closer to the end because when it gets to the war, I just kind of bullet point things because I'm not a military historian. But
yeah, I find that stuff boring.
But I've got that. This is maybe an aside, but I've got like some paper notes that I was writing. Like I sent you that picture of the thing because I was like trying to plan this, like trying to figure out some stuff, and sometimes paper helps with that. And I also have my old like college notes.
I was going to ask if you want to upload those.
I kind of do.
Yeah. You'll also get access to Grady's old college notes. That sounds fun.
I'm pretty sure I was just a lousy liberal at that point, but hey,
You were getting there. You were dabbling, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And they're helpful in the big pic. This is too much information, honestly, but if you want it, it'll be there.
For you nerds out there, or if you're in a class right now and you need that, they'll be there. Yeah. So the proceeds from Patreon does go to a mutual aid fund. We'll pick one at the end of, I guess, this year. So it's not lining our pockets.
Yeah. Unless, of course, we end up, declaring a People's Republic and starting a Soviet. All those funds will, of course, go to
the Soviet. Yeah. We'll see. Yeah. Depends how this blizzard goes, honestly.
For all you rising planners out there.
Yeah. If I need to hunker down and start a commune because of this blizzard, I'll let you know. What else? Oh, we're on YouTube. I think it's the last plug I got for you. So just give us a search there if that's your preferred method. And I think that's it.
All right.
Cool.
That concludes our episode. Hopefully you learned quite a bit about the revolution in Ireland.
Dude, I totally did. That was fun. Like I said, I knew jack shit, so this was great.
It's cool. It only gets cooler.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah,
I was like sad when you stopped. I was like, oh no, I wanted to find out what happened.
Thanks for being a great student as always.
Thanks for teaching me.
And listeners, you guys can tune in next week for another episode of Teach Me Communism, where the class struggle is always in session.
Bye, y'all.
Remember that we don't demand too much. We only want the earth.
Yes, please.
Bye.